Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Eric Nijveld, co-founder of TechnologyCatalogue.com. Welcome to today's webinar. And before I hand over to the speaker, I would like to briefly introduce TechnologyCatalogue.com in case you're not yet familiar with the platform. TechnologyCatalogue.com was launched in 2018 with the aim to give end users easy access to technology and to give suppliers a way to create visibility for their tech. In case you haven't seen the platform yet, let me briefly show it to you. It's very easy. Let me just share my screen and share a window. If correct, you see a window now. And TechnologyCatalogue.com can easily be accessed by typing in TechnologyCatalogue.com in the browser. And you can start searching for technology that can help you to improve your business performance in terms of CO2 reduction, cost reduction, safety improvement, as well as impact on other measures. Besides giving end users easy access and giving suppliers a way to create visibility, we also give experts the opportunity to showcase their expertise and support suppliers as well as end users with getting the technology deployed. Sagacious IP is one of the expert companies listed on our platform. And in today's webinar, Faiz Wahid will share insights about IP intelligence. So Faiz is the Sagacious IP Global Strategic Initiatives Leader and also the Regional Head Europe. So with that, I would like to hand over to Faiz. Welcome, Faiz, and looking forward to a great presentation. If you do have any questions, please type them in at any moment in time in the Q&A box on the left-hand side of the screen. And we will, following Faiz's presentation, we will do a Q&A session and answering questions that you may have. Thanks. Over to you, Faiz.
Hey, thanks, Eric. I'm glad to be on this community platform for TechnologyCatalogue.com. Thanks for inviting us. And I think what I'm going to share today might be not necessarily for altogether new, but maybe somewhat new for many of our participants. So it would be good if all the participants could use this small hand button on the left side of their screens to kind of raise their hands if they already are very well aware of IP. So just click on the button on the left with the hand raise, so I can see how many people already know about IP. To a great extent, if you are introduced to the concept of IP, patents, etc., then that's fine. But if you really are into it, then I would like to know how many of you are there. So great, I see a couple of hands there, so that's very good. I will share my screen now, and Eric, please let me know if you see it on your screen.
Yes, I can see it. Thanks.
Do you see the full screen, or do you see the screen with the notes?
No, I can see the full screen. Thanks.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, so again, welcome everybody to this presentation. I'm going to talk about the topic of intellectual property research and management and how it helps in protecting and discovering products, ideas, or innovations. Sometimes people call ideas inventions. Those lead to products. Sometimes they're called as innovations. Many of these are interchangeable terms. But when we are talking about what we are going to talk about today are essentially technologies and how technologies really need to be protected, and how end users could discover such technologies, their suppliers, etc. Of course, we are not going to address one specific point. There is a set of questions that I shared earlier. I'll skip this slide as Eric already introduced myself. As you might have seen in the introduction note of this webinar, there are a set of questions that we want to cover and address in this webinar. Essentially, intellectual property is a very critical element in enabling technology transfer and deployments both, right? And I believe most of the participants here might either belong to the side of technology supply or from the end user perspective, end users. So we'll try to cover both these perspectives in answering these questions. The first and foremost question that we want to understand is what is intellectual property data and what intelligence can it provide? Now, when you look at it from a quantitative perspective, you find that there are all different kinds of IP, what we call intellectual property, patents, designs, trademarks, and so on and so forth. We won't go into those specific things right now, but just looking at the overall quantum of intellectual property, we see a very sharp rise over the years, and you actually see that there is a huge quantum of information or knowledge, scientific knowledge, technical knowledge, of course, a little convoluted in legal jargon, but still available in the public domain for use by everybody. Now, so when you look at it from a quantitative perspective, you find that there is this huge information source out there which contains all this technical information. When you look at it from a qualitative perspective, more from a descriptive perspective, you find there is a lot of small pieces of information that are tied to this, what we call patent or trademarks also. I've taken the example of patent here. And a patent may contain, information which can lead to indications around a lot of things. And because this data is available over a period of time, you could actually use it for a lot of purposes. But what we need to understand is what kind of data is available here. So you have dates about when the technology was, identified, when it got patented, when was the patent granted, when was it first patented, what were the latest updates in it. You not only you have the title of the invention, but you also have abstracts. You have what are the rights that they claim to make on the new innovations. You have information about who owns that or who filed that. You also have information, and not just descriptive information. You also have drawings, illustrations explaining how it really works, etc. You have citation information, which is a very rich information, like a patent, if innovated, what other sources of information it used to kind of arrive at this patent, or which countries the patent is filed, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of information available around each patent. And if you saw the previous slide closely, you might have seen that we're talking about thousands of patents, millions of patents, millions of trademarks. So just by some statistics, you have close to about 130, 140 million patents at this point globally. And at the same time, you also need to understand that this data is highly categorized, structured. And so if you are looking at a specific domain, for example, let's say health, and within health, you're looking at, let's say, medical technology, and within medical technology, you're looking at, let's say, hematology, and within hematology, you're looking at in vitro diagnostics, and within in vitro diagnostics, if you're looking at point of care, and within point of care, you're looking at point of care devices, and within that, you're looking at, for example, cytometers. the patent is actually categorized at that very niche level of information. So effectively, as a supplier or as a end user, if you're looking for very specific pieces of information or specific intelligence, you could actually use this data in a very well categorized manner. So essentially, this huge set of data is highly structured, it's globally organized, and publicly available. And those make it very ripe for using it for several purposes. The first and foremost is using it for technical purposes, like what R&D things should I focus on, what technology already exists, what I can reuse, what I need to research on, what I need to build, those kind of technical decision making. We also use it for legal purposes, like if I'm creating a product, am I infringing on somebody else's patent rights? I want to avoid that, and to see if my own product or inventions or innovations within that product are well protected. So those are the traditional purposes, technical purposes, legal purposes. But more so, as we move ahead, we find that the data and the quantum of data and the over the timeline, what data is available, it's also very useful for market, business, or competitive intelligence. Looking at technology trends, looking at trying to find partners in a specific geography, in a specific domain of technical relevance, and so on. So now that we understand that, okay, this kind of data is available, there's another thing that we need to look at. How and why organizations are actually using and protecting their IP. And we already touched upon it a bit, that organizations are using patents, trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets, etc. But essentially, the key reason of protecting is to gain competitive advantage and protecting yourself in a certain market. So, for example, if I am a technology supplier in, let's say, the US, and I identify Japan and Korea as my potential markets where I would sell, I need to protect my technology in those markets. Otherwise, I have a risk of getting, getting copied, and duplicates coming out, or I infringing on somebody else's patent, etc. as well. So the primary and foremost reason is protecting yourself in a certain market, in a certain geography, and of course there are once you have patents in hand, there are many other scenarios which could be beneficial. Now, how can IP research and legal service providers help suppliers and end users of technology? I'm not going to go into a specific supplier or how we help, etc. But I'm going to look here at certain scenarios for which a technology supplier might need help, and that's where players like research firms, IP research firms, or legal service providers may come in and help. The first and foremost reason for technology suppliers is to protect their technology. And there is a research or a study done here called as the freedom to operate, which basically ensures that you identify all the risks associated with your product from an IP perspective, to ensure that the product that you're launching in a certain market has the freedom to operate there. So this kind of research actually helps understand the risks and mitigate them. In some cases, organizations may find that there are risks, and those risks are because of certain patents which a competitor owns. And in some cases, you might find that this competitor, you also have certain patents, or you also have certain patents where the competition has products which infringe on you. So you may be able to identify how to manage those risks. It's not always that the product has to be risk-free in the sense of no infringement, but even in case there are infringements, you would know what kind of infringements are possible, and you have ways and means to protect yourself against it. So protection is one of the key scenarios where technology suppliers can be supported. The second is enforcement. We know the product is protected. We know we have the patents, etc. But there are still counterfeits out there in the market. Are we able to enforce our IP rights on them? There might also be certain people who are using similar technology without knowing that there is a patent existing, which we own, and selling the product with the same claims. Such kind of infringements could be identified through a product research or a market research, which can be conducted on the claims that the patent has, and like a reverse search can yield into identification of infringements. The third key area is licensing. If you have technology and you want to license it out to create new revenues, sometimes people do it in their core area of business. Sometimes they also do it in their non-core area of business. What kind of value should we associate, etc., to the technology? There again, there are methodologies to help identify information and licensing values, etc. there. The fourth area is supporting and building the value proposition. So when we are pitching and promoting our technologies, we might want to showcase those technologies as compared to other technologies, other competing technologies, or other alternative that the customer has in their review. And we want to showcase the benefits of our technology versus the competitive technology. So this could be done using technology benchmarking at not just at the face level, but also at a detailed IP level as to what really value this technology has. Finally, I already touched upon the technology valuation as part of the licensing, but that is also a critical thing. You want to assess how much value, what should be the licensing fees for your technology, or what should be the fee for your solution. So technology and IP value also needs to be sort of built in so that you get the right price for the technology that you're providing. And finally, for internal product development as well. So you can leverage the patent data to research and identify new features that are being worked upon by, let's say, other people, other companies who are competing in your domain. You could, like you have the voice of customer, you can actually also use the voice of IP to guide your product development. And helping you cross the technology readiness levels within the organization for each technology. So this is a glimpse of the different IP scenarios where the technology supplier might find it useful to engage in IP research to kind of guide their decision making in different areas. Now, when we look from an end user perspective, there are three key areas where this can help. One is in discovery. So you want to discover new technology trends in a certain problem area that you're facing, how other people are addressing it. So looking at that and who are the key players, you want to identify that. The second is looking at what competitors are doing, what kind of technology are they acquiring, what kind of solutions are they engaging in. And thirdly is looking at taking a very specific problem and trying to find, okay, how is this problem being solved at the technology level across the board. So it could have been solved in another industry area. How do you identify that? This is possible through literature research. The second area is technology evaluation. So like, for the technology supplier, you would want to do technology benchmarking to, select the positive and negative of a technology. Similarly, you could use this technology evaluation to kind of identify what are the merits and demerits of using a certain technology. Could also use patent valuation here to identify what would be the potential licensing fee for such technologies. And one emerging area here is around supply chain analysis. Nowadays, organizations are very critical about how my supply chain is positioned, not only just from, let's say, a sustainability point of view or environmental point of view, but also from the shift of power point of view. So if you look at the case of Nokia, Nokia got completely sidelined from their core business because they couldn't realize how important an operating system like Android could be for the mass dissemination of mobile devices. And if they would have understood that a part of my supply chain is growing and that part is going to be critical for the future of my OEM operations, then right focus at that time, at an early time on that aspect of the supply chain which is growing could help the organization. So you could look at a supply chain more from a IP ownership point of view, and also see how the power shift is happening within that within that supply chain, and accordingly, choose how you want to align yourselves from a IP ownership point of view. IP ownership is critical from a competitive advantage perspective. So that's how it correlates. Now, why and how do organizations acquire IP intelligence when looking for new technologies? There are several ways of acquiring IP intelligence. There are paid databases. There are paid databases which companies like ours who are into commercial research of IP involved, they subscribe to them. But then if you are just kind of trying to do it yourself at a certain level, you could look at some of the publicly available tools that are available out there. So I could definitely recommend a tool like lens.org, where you could actually quickly go and search for some keywords that you're looking for technologies, you're trying to explore technologies in, and you could go and look at who are the key players and who is filing there, etc. So there are also other tools like Google Scholar and so on and so forth. At Sagacious, we have created an initiative called IP Tools Hub. So if you go to iptoolshub.com, you could actually try and search and find tools that are available for patent research. There is a whole set of tools available across the patent lifecycle, but you could just look at research tools here and identify them. And one major point I would like to mention here is that AI is massively affecting or creating an impact on access to patent data, because this data is huge, and there is, I think, immense interest right now in creating tools to help organizations look at this data and use it for business decision making. So this is an upcoming trend, and there are a lot of tools which are out there offering a lot of information. But you could just go ahead and look at simple tools like lens.org or Google Patents to kind of start with your quick searches and trying to identify information that might be useful for you. There are different ways this information is delivered or looked at from the point of view of service providers like us. There are organizations who want to keep a track of what's happening in their technology domain or in a specific technology area. So they look at patent monitoring. They keep monitoring what new technology innovations are happening in that sector, that specific sector. For example, like I told you, flow meters. What is happening in the area of flow meters, and you could even classify it by specific kind of liquid that you are looking for a flow meter. So you could go at a very narrow level and start tracking what's happening in that area. The second is benchmarking of competition. You can look actually at different organizations and what kind of technology strategy do they have? How is each organization um, uh, organized from an R&D point of view? What is their core focus area? What is their non-core area? And so on and so forth. Another way people look at this information is to identify white spaces within the overall R&D space that they are working in. So for example, this image shows you a comparison of 3 companies on different aspects of smart grids, and it shows you that the area of blockchain within the smart grid sector is highly underrepresented. uh, there are not many innovations in that space, or very less number of innovations. So this is a wide space where a company might want to invest and build their capability in. Now going ahead, I did talk about a few things like scouting and those things, valuations, etc. So let me kind of just take a quick walkthrough of what a technology landscape or other forms of researches look like. Um, so when we talk about technology landscape, you are trying to, let's say, define a technology area and then identify what's happening in that space. It's like a breadth search. I want to know quickly who are the key players, what's happening in this space, what are the key technology areas that are being developed upon, who is developing them, which geographies are they active in, etc. And that's what you get in a technology landscape when you and this is all built using patent information. Um, this gives a good first level overview of what's happening in the space, and also tells you or at least identifies which areas you would like to deep dive into and know further about. Um, the second way of looking at this information is from a technology scouting perspective. Like, you have a specific problem in hand and you want to find the best fit solutions that address this particular problem. And this can be used for identifying technology partners. This can be used for identifying early stage companies who are startups or emerging players in that particular domain. Or you could also identify acquisition targets using this approach. This is more specific maybe from a supplier point of view, who's trying to improve their R&D and improve the technology that they already have. And you are looking at what problem to solve. And so R&D problem scouting is another area. This is similar to the white space analysis, and you would basically then put all your efforts to identify what is a problem which is important but has not yet been solved. And this could come from the literature research of patent data. I think this is the final um, you know information about another type of research that is conducted, which is called application scouting. And this is important to mention here because sometimes suppliers create a technology and they identify potential customer segments, and they pitch to those customer segments. But sometimes certain technologies might have applications in other technology areas which the supplier might not be fully aware of. In just to kind of give you an example, um, uh, we had a customer in the chemical industry domain, and they had a chemical compound which was used in the cement industry. And because of certain environmental laws in the cement industry, the composition that the technology that this company sold to the end user could no longer be sold to them, because the industry could not use that technology anymore. And so the revenue stream for the supplier stopped. And this was a problem that was given to our research team to identify if there was an application of the same technology in another domain. And the team looking into technical research was able to identify that there is an application of a similar technology in the semiconductor space. And the end user explored it, the supplier explored it, and then they were able to identify potential organizations who were willing to look at acquiring that technology because it was useful in their domain, which the supplier was completely unaware of. So so if there are technologies which have certain applications in certain areas, you could actually leverage technical research to also look at and identify potential expansion opportunities for that technology to newer customer segments. So so with that, I think I've already covered a lot of ground. I'll probably just talk about one more, and this is more from the end user perspective. I think where you are looking at technology players or identifying investment opportunities in technologies or products, etc., which are related to your industry. Parent data could actually also give you information around rising trends in certain domains. And like I said, you can actually do it at a very narrow level. It's not like what is the trend in the oil and gas industry, but you could actually go down and see, okay, at a specific very narrow technology area, a niche area, you can actually look at how the trend is rising in that space. Who are the key players in that space? Are there any worthy of acquisition or collaboration or early stage investment, so that later on the acquisition of that technology becomes cheaper for you, etc. So opportunity scouting is another reason why suppliers and end users actually come to research firms to help them address their issues. So key takeaways here: IP data is huge. It has evolved into a unique source of structured, high quality public information around technologies, and like I mentioned, along the value constellation. So we all understand that the supply chain is no longer a linear chain. It's a value constellation. Different players interact with different players who have different value in the whole constellation of doing business. And IP is a critical element of that value constellation. So who owns the IP becomes very important as you go ahead. And that is why this in-depth intelligence that is available through patent data in very, very narrow areas of technology cannot be further ignored by any size of businesses, because the data has become so easy to obtain and so easy to access that even startups or individual inventors could actually look at that information and try and draw meanings out of it. Of course, when you're trying to do it at a complex level, then it requires expertise, etc. So that's where research companies come in. But yeah, there is a lot of information out there which can be used for identifying technologies, partners for collaboration, and also factual information available to evaluate and also to promote technologies in the right manner. So I will probably stop here for questions and hand it over back to Eric.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vice, and for the insightful presentation. If anyone has questions, please type them in the Q&A box. As we wait for questions coming in, I have a couple of questions, Vice. And first of all, once more, thanks a lot for sharing the insights. Actually, on one of the first slides, you showed a graph with the trends, and you showed a very sharp increase in terms of number of trademarks being registered. Can you say something about that? What causes that very sharp increase in recent years?
So, Eric, there has been a general movement towards brand building. If you see, even a young startup which is trying to innovate a new product is already creating a brand of its own, and so um, there is an increased, you can say, awareness around protecting your brand. That what's leads to increase in trademark registrations. But at the same time, you also see a rise in businesses, entrepreneurship overall. So those are the two key reasons why you see this increase. Plus, the jurisdictions, the different governments are doing a lot to promote entrepreneurship, uh, doing a lot to promote IP awareness as well. And the trademark is, I would say, easier and more widely applicable IP right versus, let's say, a patent or another type of IP that an organization would apply. So let's say there is a small startup, they might not have a patent, but they would be easily willing to go for a trademark. So that's the reason why the number of trademarks are much higher in the world. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thanks. I have a couple of other questions, but in the meantime, I also see some questions coming in. So let's take the first one. It says, thanks, Vice, really interesting. Can you provide some insights into protecting software IP? Is it mostly through trademarks and licensing, or is there something more fundamental which can be done to protect software IP?
So software IP has different, um, you can say, different interpretations in different jurisdictions. In certain jurisdictions, it's very difficult to protect, certain kinds of, um, uh, algorithms or so. But in general, the way you would be looking at is copywriting. That's the first step in softwares, and the second is you could still do patents in software if you were having certain processes, algorithms, um, or business processes that you are implementing, user interfaces, UI, and other special things like that. But yeah, it is a topic of, let's say, expert opinion. So I would suggest that if you have a specific software and you're trying to protect, if you feel that there is a unique thing that you're doing in your software and you would like to protect it, you should definitely consult somebody who has expertise in that space. So I'm happy to have a consultation arrange a consultation with some of our experts in that space. But yeah, it is protectable. Recently, in fact, I did a couple of freedom to operate studies for startups who were applying for the European, incubation at the European Accelerator, European Commission Accelerator, and those kind of programs where they fund startups. They have now started mandating that the startup application should come along with a freedom to operate report for their even software products. So yeah, I mean, protecting software IP is an expert topic. So please have a specific consultation. But yeah, there are ways and means to protect software IP.
Yeah, excellent. There's another question. It says, could you cite an example to understand what is technology scouting and how it helps in patent data searching?
So, the question is slightly, um, um, the way it is written, at least, is slightly confusing. So I'll like to clarify one, that technology scouting doesn't help in patent data searching, but rather patent data searching helps in technology scouting. Technology scouting is a business objective where the business is trying to identify a technology which will solve one of their problems, that they are facing. Um, for example, a supplier might have a technology and they want to combine it with a adjacent technology, so that they can create a complete product, and they're looking for that specific piece of technology, and so they go out scouting for that technology. Or it could be an end user who is creating a mix of technology portfolio at their end, so that they solve a problem, and within that portfolio they have a missing piece of technology which they would like to scout for. So pattern data searching would actually help you in identifying who are the key players in that space, what is the trend, who is innovating in that specific niche area, and then reach out to them and establish communication and collaboration.
Yeah, excellent. And one of the interesting things that you presented was around application scouting. So also things that we want to do as a platform, technologycatalog.com, is to make sure that technologies that are being used in conventional industries also add value to renewables. For example, maintenance technologies that were applicable in refineries can also help to do maintenance in hydrogen plants in the future, and this way helping to reduce cost of hydrogen projects. Do you see that actually happening a lot, or do you get many questions in that area around technologies applied in more conventional domains and to get those transferred and applied in renewables or in support of the energy transition in general?
Yeah, I think so. So these, kind of studies in research, in IP research, we call, novelty search, invalidities, and freedom to operate. So novelties are searches when you have an idea and you want to assess whether this idea is a unique idea or not, because you have 130 million patents out there. Whatever you have thought of has to be unique in that 130 million patents, otherwise it's not protectable. So that is a novelty search. The invalidity search is, let's say somebody is infringed upon by, you have a product and somebody sues you that you are infringing on my product. Now the best way to avoid that infringement is by proving that the patent itself is invalid. Most of the lawyers would actually take that as a approach to invalidate the claim itself. So that is the invalidity. And third is the freedom to operate. When you have a product and you want to launch it in the market and you want to ensure that it's not infringing on anybody's IP. So these are what we call bread and butter, searches in the IP industry. Everybody needs it, everybody does it, and there is a huge flow of this. But technology scouting, application scouting, these kind of things are, I would say, higher order searches. If the CXO or if the IP head within the company has that vision and has that understanding, then they would go for this. So um, I I think there is a lot of interest in transferring technologies or looking at other industries to learn from there. So there is more and more interest coming in, but I would still say it's not huge. It's still growing. It's sort of in the growing stage.
Thanks. And another question is, one of the things that you highlighted was that IP intelligence can help to avoid duplication of R&D expenditure. Is that a typical outcome that people come to you and indeed the outcome is, hey, things already exist or under development already? Can you shine some light on that?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, R&D teams, especially if it is a well-organized R&D team which is IP aware, and there is organizational focus on having IP as one of the key aspects of whatever they conduct research on. There is always the case that at the moment the ideation happens, and before you even write a patent application, the organization will conduct a a novelty search or a patentability search, and look at whether this information, whether there is a term in this industry called prior art. If there is prior art existing which is similar to what you are trying to protect, then either they would stop working on it, either they would start looking at acquiring licenses to it or reusing it, or in the R&D space they might want to do a design around, they might want to design around that novelty so that they have a different and a better approach to solve that problem. So that's how somebody would look at when they are faced with seeing that there is already prior art existing.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So with this, I would like to wrap up. So thank you very much for sharing the insights for the thanks for the presentation. This webinar is recorded. It will be shared via social media, and it will also shared with the participants directly. And so you can watch the recording. If you have any follow-up questions, please reach out to Vice about this specific topic. If you have any specific questions about the platform, technologycatalog.com, please reach out to us at the address info@technologycatalog.com. So thank you very much, and wish you all a great day.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for having us. Yeah, I think you'll be sharing the PowerPoint presentation with the attendees, so they will have my email ID if they have any questions there.